So I've got a budget, and I've got to make the best use of that budget. And so ultimately, the problem that I have is I'm trying to figure out what I need to purchase for inventory, with the stipulations being that it has to be a distribution center stocked order, which will be in one of the columns over to the right. And then just kind of like consolidating all of the historical purchases into a nice clean spreadsheet that tells me how many times they purchased this on how many different occasions, and whether or not it was within the last 18 months. I don't necessarily want to include anything that's over 18 months old, because that could be an obsolete part.
So the first thing that I did was clean up his data. He had a handful of rows that were empty, and then I added columns to the right to filter out things that were within the last 18 months and things that were returnable or not. It wasn't directly obvious which items were returnable, but we went through the source name column and he indicated which sources indicated it was returnable. The next thing I did was take that clean data and put it into a pivot table. I filtered to returnable yes, 18 months true. I also consolidated it to the item number. There were multiple columns for different part numbers, and so that was the one that the customer indicated they wanted to group on. And then the reason you see count of customers, it's really count of transactions. And then the max sell price, there were transactions with the same part number with multiple selling prices, and that was the one that they preferred, is the max rather than an average or the minimum. After that, I copied and pasted the values from the pivot table into a separate sheet because it's easier to work with and manipulate. I used an index match formula to grab the item description. There were multiple descriptions for each part number, and so this was an easy way to just grab one. It wasn't super critical for him. The next thing I did after that was I put a budget, and then I added columns for proposed quantity and proposed inventory. I then added formulas for proposed stock quantity and inventory value. For proposed stock quantity, I took the average number of transactions and the total quantity purchased and got an average transaction value. I then grabbed the price and multiplied that to get the inventory value. And at the top, I grabbed the current spend, and that's basically how much of the budget is being eaten up by the proposed stock quantities here. Our second to last step, I did conditional formatting to highlight the rows that were going to be the most expensive for this particular proposal, which allows the user to manually change the proposed stock quantity to something lower in order to get more items. Last, I worked with the customer to really nail in those proposed stock quantities. I didn't know his exact budget, but I was working with him to show the process of how I would do it. The other thing that I did was, the other goal that he had was to maximize the number of SKUs that he had in stock. So for example, the row that was the most expensive, I dropped that quantity and was able to add another 10, 15 SKUs in order to get everything he wanted. Hey, so I hope you enjoyed that video. My hope is that you start to see the value that I can bring in a quick 1-hour session. I had no context of what this client needed, but I know supply chain, I know inventory, I know spreadsheets, and I can make things happen really quick. For this particular client, he said that he saved about 8 to 10 hours of his time for the next week, and thousands of dollars of potentially sunk inventory costs for ordering the wrong thing. So he was very grateful and appreciative of what I was able to bring to the table, and I'd love to bring that same value to you.